Hey, everybody. Welcome to Takeoff with John Clark. And let's bring in one of the best analysts out there from ESPN. He's covering the draft in New York, Seth Greenberg. Appreciate you taking the time.
Glad to join you. It's obviously an exciting time for not just the NBA, but for the players, those young players and their families and the journey they've been on, and culminating with an opportunity to get drafted and then obviously start their careers. So it's yesterday was an emotional, exciting day for so many players and so many families, and then some maybe a disappointing day for some guys, which I don't understand because the NBA is the most exclusive club in the world. And it's not a rite of passage to get drafted in the lottery. It's not a rite of passage to get drafted in the first round. It's a privilege. And your career doesn't start until you step on that court and then you make your own mark. So I'm excited about this class. And last night was a pretty emotional day for a lot of players, both from our country and from abroad.
And we're listening to you on ESPN Radio during the draft last night and again tonight. And Sixers fans here in Philly, I tell you, 90% of Sixers fans, whatever it is, people really love the pick of VJ Edgecombe. Did you like this pick?
Yeah, I think he's a perfect fit. VJ Edgecombe, I think he was the second best two-way player in the draft. I think Cooper Flagg is the best two-way player in the draft. He's an explosive athlete, as people know. He's terrific in transition. I think he'll be a good complement for Tyrese, Maxey, and McCain, which I think is important. He's an elite defender. Catch and shoot from three, no problem. We'll have to improve a little bit off the bounce, kind of get into a spot and elevating, but he's got the athleticism. When we interviewed him after his selection, you talk about emotional. He was trying to get himself back under control. And I loved the way he approached it. Like he said, it was an honor and a privilege to be with us. He thanked us. He was excited about the future and just getting ready to go to work and believed in his work. And I'm a big believer in his "you are your habits." And he's got great habits and a terrific body and athleticism and toughness. And I think the Sixers need a guy like that to complement Tyrese.
And, of course, there was a lot of talk about would it be Ace Bailey there at 3 or VJ Edgecombe. Once Ace Bailey didn't work out for hardly anybody, canceled on the Sixers. Give me an idea if you're making the decision, Daryl Morey in his seat. Would you have gone with VJ or would you have gone with Ace Bailey?
I would have gone with VJ. I mean, Ace Bailey is an elite scorer. He's 18 years old. He's got a little immaturity. You're only as good as your locker room. I'm not sure the Sixers locker room is old enough to put their arms around a guy like Ace Bailey, where I think the maturity and the self-starter mentality of VJ Edgecombe fits in better. I think VJ filling voids is really important. Ace Bailey is a terrific talent. But you're going to need to hold his hand a little bit. The game is harder than he thinks. He thought college basketball was going to be easy, and I think injuries had a lot to do with Rutgers struggling a little bit. But Ace Bailey's a talent. He's an explosive scorer. He's an active and alert defender. He gets his hands on balls. But in terms of what the Sixers need, they need stability. They need a guy that physically, emotionally, mentally is about competing and being for the team. And I think at this moment in time, I think VJ is the right selection.
And your colleague Jay Billis said he's probably the most athletic player in the draft. And Daryl Morey spoke about what you talked about, how to help Tyrese Maxey. So he said eventually VJ can guard the best player. And so that takes a little pressure off Tyrese. How do you think they will complement each other? You can throw in Jared McCain, as you said, as well.
Yeah, I think he's a great compliment. Look, Tyrese Maxey is one of my all-time favorite players. I got a chance to spend a lot of time with that Kentucky team, and I was down there, and it was kind of cool. You learn a lot about players when they leave college. And Arkansas was playing Michigan in Madison Square Garden. Tyrese Maxey had a day off. And he drove up to Madison Square Garden from Philly to see Coach Cal. And that said a lot to me about, and I got to know him pretty well. And I said, hey, you went out of your way to come on up here. He goes, Coach Cal's my guy. He's loyal to me. I'm loyal to him. And he's just to me, he's a terrific young person who's raised well. And obviously his dad was a coach. And I think Tyrese can play with anyone, but I think it would be great because he has a couple of guys that have his similar DNA. And if you watch Tyrese coming out of school, I remember Anthony Edwards, he had his workout. Anthony, great player, has been terrific. But his workout was about at 75%. And then you went and watched Tyrese Maxey's workout. I don't know if you remember, it was on TV. That dude went after it. I mean, he went after it. And that's who VJ Edgecombe is going to be. And so I think it's a great match for the Sixers. I think for Nick and for Tyrese.
And that's a great point you brought up about the defense. And when we talked to VJ last night, he says he hates when he sees other people score. And he has such a great mentality with defense. He says he hates to lose, and that's why he puts so much into defense.
Yeah.
How important is that about the mentality and the want, and he said the grit to play defense, and how much will that help Tyrese?
Well, you need resilience. Well, I mean, like Tyrese, you can put VJ on the ball or off the ball. So you can, depending on the other team's best player, you obviously don't want to wear down Tyrese for all the responsibility that he has during the course of the game. He's got a guard and he's a committed defender. But I think both of them together, I mean, Tyrese is an active and alert defender. He's got good defensive range. He's got good length. He's prideful. But you got to have two guys who can guard the basketball. And you got to give two guys on the perimeter that have a toughness that won't melt on screens if you're not switching. And I think those two guys will complement each other both offensively and defensively.
And when you watch VJ, it's exciting in transition. He's explosive. He's so athletic. He's got the great dunks. Now, he says he would like to improve his shot. He wants to get better at some things. How can he improve offensively? Have you seen, he made growth, I guess, in his freshman year. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, he's a good, like, he can spot up and knock down, catch and shoot threes. He's got pretty good footwork. He gets shot ready, shows his hands, gets behind the ball on the catch, and gets it off fairly quick. It's, he's so athletic, so he'll get used to playing small to big so that he can be himself on back, get himself on balance and elevate and get to a spot and shoot it, which I think is really important. He'll learn to create a little bit of separation by pivoting and then using that ability to move the defense. He'll improve probably in terms of learning to, use his quickness in ball screen situations. I would think that people would probably force him to ball screens and maybe, early on blitz him. He'll learn to manipulate and read those ball screen situations. But the guy loves the game and the guy loves the gym. And when you get lost in the game and you get lost in the work, you get better. Talking to Scott Drew yesterday, I talked to Scott throughout the season. He absolutely loved the kid. And having that international experience was huge for him. He gained confidence there. So he was asked a lot to do at Baylor, which is good. He embraced having that much on his plate. So he's just going to continue to get better with that athleticism, but more importantly, the athleticism and the attitude. Athleticism without the attitude is just potential. When you have athleticism and attitude and a work ethic, all right, then all of a sudden you have, potential becomes realized. And I think that's what's going to happen with him.
And you catching up with him last night after the draft on ESPN radio and us catching up with him on Zoom, and a lot of people talked to him, and you can see the character he has. And he talked about his mom raising them in the Bahamas. They didn't have electricity. They were on a generator, and he broke into tears talking about his mom. So he came from humble beginnings, and he has improved every step of the way. How important do you think character is really in this whole thing?
Character is the most important thing. You're only as good as your locker room, and your locker room better have a group of high character guys. You got to be a group of guys that can count on each other. And you name me a championship team that didn't have high character guys. I mean, maybe someone who was successful didn't have high character. I mean, you can fool people for a short period of time, but to be successful long term, it starts with the essence of who you are. And the good thing is he knows exactly who he is and how he wins. But character is something you can always lean on because you're going to face adversity. I mean, that's just the way it is. And when you face adversity, you've got to have toughness and intestinal fortitude, but you also have to have high character. And you also have to have people along the way with you, holding your hand and pulling them along with them. And I think that's where obviously Tyrese comes in as a mentor to these young players.
Do you have a comp for VJ?
Yeah, I mean, I think Wade and Oladipo have been pretty much the consistent ones. And I actually think Victor Oladipo, just so you understand, I tried to recruit Victor Oladipo. He went to Indiana. I mean, he didn't start on his high school team as a junior. Think about that. All right. I mean, so he didn't play very much in Indiana as a freshman. and had a terrific career. Dwayne Wade, older than VJ, because Dwayne Wade redshirted his freshman year. He was a partial qualifier at Marquette, just worked on his game. So, I mean, it's a different era that we're playing in. The NBA is getting so much younger, and all these young, talented players, they're not playing against as many grizzled, older teams, even though the teams that play, like, if you look at the playoffs last year, tell me what I was ready to say freshmen, what rookies really had an impact on the NBA playoffs. Rookies don't have an impact on the NBA playoffs. But what happens, like you look at Oklahoma City, when those guys are 2 and 3 years in, all those rookies who become second and third year players, they are good enough because they get to play early enough that they have the right guys and the right roster construction. They have an opportunity to compete for national championships and NBA championships.
Paul George on his podcast also threw out there a Jimmy Butler comparison to VJ Edgecombe.
Yeah, that I would say that's good because Jimmy didn't have a crazy handle back then. I mean, look, the big thing for the Sixers is they got to stay healthy. They got to figure out what's going to, Joel's got to be healthy. He's got to be up to play 65 games. That's just the way it is. Paul George has got to stay healthy. If Joel can't play 65 games, obviously his contract it's hard to move him. But if you have a different team every single week, it's impossible to coach your team. And when you have two players that you rely on, like George and Embiid, and they don't have availability, I don't care. I don't care who's coaching them. I don't care if John Wooden comes out. I don't care if Pat Riley comes out. I don't care if Red Auerbach comes out. Like, Nick is a really good basketball coach, but you're only as good as the players that you have available to you. So I think it's really important that they figure out a way to stay healthy and continue to add to their roster.
And luckily, the Sixers are not in the West. That is just going to be a battle out there.
The East is wide open.
Yeah. So when you see what's happened with Tyrese Halliburton, unfortunately, and Jason Tatum, and now the Celtics are stripping down their team, and Damian Lillard, and all these injuries and things like that, teams taking a step back. Where would you put the Sixers in the East if they can stay healthy?
Well, that's a big if. I mean, until I see who's going to be able to play. I mean, if they're fully healthy and Joel Embiid is the player that he can be, and Paul George stays healthy with Tyrese, and they have another draft choice and continue. They could be really good. I mean, Orlando could be really good. The Knicks could be really good. We poo-poo the East, and it's right. You're losing, NBA all first team players, but they're still good teams. Atlanta's gotten better with Porzingis. I mean, I think they really improved themselves. So it's hard to win games. I mean, that's the one thing drives me crazy. I haven't coached for 33 years. They was, the East is down. Well, they're going to be 13 NBA players on that roster. There's going to be 13 guys that are making millions of dollars on that roster. Right. And they're trying to win too. Like, the other team's trying to win also. So the West is a joke. The West is going to be a survival of the fittest. The West is going to come down to who does stay healthy, because everyone is all in the West. Houston improved themselves. Oklahoma City's continuing to get better. You look at the draft; they have so many different pieces. Golden State. If Steph didn't get hurt, who knows what would happen there? How about that Oklahoma City, Dallas, Houston? I mean, come on, man. I mean, that's a brutal road trip. So it's going to be fun to watch. And it'll be fun to watch tonight because more lives will be changed. There'll be a lot of two-way guys. There'll be a lot of guys at the top will get contracts, but there are some guys out there that can play, that can potentially be fits and role players if they buy into the role and understand that that's what the NBA is a league of, is role players. So it'll be interesting to watch tonight.
And is VJ kind of like the perfect player for the way the NBA is going? Because you see the youngest team, Oklahoma City Thunder, I think in 48 years. You see Indiana going up and down the floor. Is VJ kind of like the perfect fit for the NBA today?
Yeah, he is, because of his athleticism, his toughness, his ability to play both ways, his ability to, because I mean, two things people don't understand. Like, how did Oklahoma City win? Yeah, they terrific team, great trust. Shea was terrific. Williams was terrific. They get extra possessions. They get extra possessions on the glass. They got extra possessions out of their defense. So you've got to have a team with players that can create easy offense and get extra possession so you can play ahead of the defense, especially in playoffs because it's a different game. So, yeah, I think he's a really, really good fit. I mean, you guys, I say he's got a chance to be a terrific player, and that's all, when you draft at that position, a young player, the expectation is you've got to respect the process, and there's roadblocks and detours along the way. It's not the roadblocks and detours that beat you down. It's how you handle them. And that's why when you talk about character, resiliency, toughness, stick-to-itiveness, your locker room, how you're going to be coached, all those things come into play. But you also look into the DNA of a player. And the DNA of this guy is one that he will find a way to be successful and fight through the dark days.
And obviously the Sixers, they are tied to Joel Embiid. They're tied to Paul George with their contracts. Do you think they've got a good mix now, though? They've got the veterans who are trying to stay healthy with Joel and Paul George and guys like that. But now you got these young guys here that bring that energy, the dynamic play and athleticism.
Yeah, look, it's all going to come down to Joel and Paul George. I think Paul George, he says all the right things, and which is great. He's, he carries himself in a way. He's such a unique talent. That's huge. And then, Joel, he's got to get healthy, stay healthy, take care of his body. And also those guys have got to set a tone in the locker room. They've got to be present. Even if it's a load management day, they got to be present. They've got to put their arms around these young kids, but not just put their arms around them, but show them the way to be a pro. And that's allowing yourself to be coached. That's being accountable. That's being present. That's, not taking shortcuts. That's saying the right things in the media. That's saying the right things in practice, interacting with the coaches. That's, being the first guy in the gym. That's doing the film work, teaching them how to watch film, putting their arms around them in terms of preparation, talking to them about the individual work, the importance of if you're on the first bus or the second bus before a game, getting in the reps. Those veteran guys can take you one way or another. They can. And part of it is, even if they are, there's some load management issues, how they handle those things, even though they have load management. Be present, be impactful, use your experience to impact others in a positive way. And I think that's really important for the Sixers.
Yeah, and as we wrap this up, that's a great point because, we went through the history here in Philly with Allen Iverson, most exciting player I've ever seen in Philly, but maybe wasn't the best guy to follow, whether it's practice habits, being present. And then Joel, I think his teammates and other people, they want to see a little more out of Joel as far as the leadership and setting the tone. That's why maybe Tyrese has said it, like maybe this is more of his time.
This is Tyrese's team. And like, I think not that Joel can't be a big part of that, but Tyrese's energy, his smile, how he includes other people, like that dude never has a bad practice. I mean, that dude never has a bad game. He's got that his presence, his body language is so positive, and that permeates through your locker room.
Yeah. And it was pretty cool to hear that Tyrese came in from out of town for VJ's workout and spent so much time with him. And they just talked about life as well, getting to know him as a person. Now, Joel and Paul George had a chance to come in. Maybe they had scheduling conflicts, but it's always Tyrese who is there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's who he is. I mean, that's how he was raised. He was that way the first day I saw him at Kentucky. He was, John coaches his guys really hard, and John would get after him, and he just smile and try to do the right thing. Because he wanted to be coached. He wanted to be great. And he knew that, he went to Kentucky for a reason, to be coached. And he embraced it.
Well, that's why the draft is great, because if they redid that draft with Tyrese, he's not going in the 20s.
It'd be a little different.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. He'll end up being an all-pro.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I appreciate the insight, and Sixers
pleasure.
fans appreciate the insight. And best wishes to you on the broadcast tonight on ESPN
Great.
Radio. We'll be listening to you, and continue great work at ESPN on college hoops. We got to get some of these hoops teams back in Philly. You know, we got to get. It's a little tough here in Philly with NIL.
Kevin Willard's going to do great. He's going to do a great job there. He really will. And I'll tell you what, it's hard because, like, the people at Temple have done. Coach Schwartz has done a really good job. The problem is he can't retain players.
Right.
I mean, that's the hardest thing. It's just, it is what it is. Fran will do a great job at Penn. I mean, I think that, you've got really good coaches, but the tradition of obviously Philadelphia basketball and the Big Five and the great coaches and the great teachers. My brother was an assistant at St. Joe's way back to Jimmy Lynam, and there's nothing better than the history of the Big Five.
Nothing better. Nothing better than a game at the Palestra.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
All right. Well, great. Thank you so much for your time, Seth. We appreciate it.
Great.
And
My
enjoy
pleasure.
the draft round 2
You
tonight.
got it. Thanks so much.
Oh, mom, so flagrant.